Thank you all for joining us for the third of the 3 Lane County Commissioner candidate forums. This is the East Lane County Commissioner race featuring incumbent Heather Buck and challengers Jake Pelroy and Bob Zybak. Just covering a few ground. Well, first of all, I am Elon Glucklich, the opinion editor at Lookout Eugene-Springfield. I'm joined here by our senior politics correspondent, Ben Botkin. Some quick ground rules as we go through the questions. First of all, we're going to ask the audience to hold off on applause or, if you find necessary, boos until the end. Candidates will have 2 minutes for introductions, and then Ben and I will alternate asking questions with each candidate given 2 minutes to respond. For the candidates up front, a gentleman here will be timing or kind of keeping the clock as things go, and will kind of prompt you when you have a minute left or 40 seconds and 20 seconds. We want to talk about the issues that affect the people who live here, not talking about how bad your opponent is, keeping things focused to policies and issues that affect people in East Lane and throughout all of Lane County. So with that, I want to get started with 2-minute candidate introductions from each of you. Let's start with you, Heather Buck.
Very good. Thank you, Lookout, for hosting the forum today. You know, it's really easy to get disillusioned by politics these days. We wake up every morning to read about the dysfunction, the chaos, the corruption that's coming out of our federal government. This is really a federal administration that is cutting healthcare and emergency funding, that is hitting small towns in Lane County pretty hard. As your commissioner, I'm fighting to deliver on the basics: expanded economic opportunities, affordable local healthcare, housing, and reliable public safety. I've utilized my position to ensure that we receive Critical Cares Act, American Rescue Plan, and FEMA funding. I've worked with 2 emergency operations centers simultaneously to set aside politics and partner with our local mayors and local leaders to save lives. During the aftermath of the Holiday Farm Fire, I was able to successfully secure over $27 million in disaster relief funding and waived over $1 million in permit fees for those looking to rebuild. I'm also focused on housing affordability, solutions for our unsheltered neighbors, and strengthening public safety. I've expanded the number of sheriff patrols to ensure better coverage for our rural county residents. I've helped open the South Lane Health Clinic in Cottage Grove, and I'm currently working on opening a mental health stabilization center for those experiencing a mental health care crisis. I'm also a mother, a military spouse, and a housing advocate. I was born and raised in rural Lane County to a single mom. I spent my professional career running a small business specializing in affordable housing and worked as special projects director for St. Vincent de Paul of Lane County. I love my job, and I am not done fighting for Lane County families. It is an honor to be your commissioner, and I hope I can earn your vote on May 19th.
Thank you. Next is Jake Pelroy.
Thanks for the Lookout for hosting. My name is Jake Pelroy. I'm running for East Lane County Commissioner. I am running because East Lane, a lot of the voters in East Lane aren't getting what they need from Lane County. I can talk about a few of those. Number 1 on that list is the permitting and land management division. There's not a day that goes by that I don't hear from someone that has a problem with land management division, whether it be a business, a mom and pop, trying to expand their kitchen, or a nonprofit trying to expand on the services that they're providing to the rural community. This is something that definitely needs to be looked at. How is it that if the counties are the ones that implement the state law for around land use, why is Lane County the worst? Another, public safety. We have 3 deputies that patrol our county at any given time. The sheriff says that we're one of the least patrolled counties in all of the nation. This is life and death situations out there in rural communities. Just to talk about myself a little bit, I grew up in rural Lane County, in a small business household. I have a family. a wife and 2 boys. We live in the Churchill neighborhood. I've been out there. I've really enjoyed this campaign experience so far, and looking forward to these conversations.
Thank you. Bob Zybak.
Lane County needs to get back to work and off welfare. There's a golden logger on top of the state capitol for a reason. For generations, Oregon families, businesses, schools, roads, and police depended on forestry, mining, and commercial fishing industries to support some of the finest and safest schools, parks, towns, and forest recreation opportunities in history. In 1990, that changed abruptly with spotted owl politics and litigation. Then, 10 years later, our schools, roads, and police went on federal welfare through PILT and SRS allotments paid by U.S. taxpayers in order to partly compensate for the lost timber revenues in Lane County. The results have been predictable. My campaign focus is to resolve these problems by returning to active management of our public forests for purposes of reducing catastrophic wildfire risk, producing full-time rural jobs, restoring our forest old growth and native wildlife populations, and eliminating the need for PILT and SRS welfare payments for our schools and police. Lane County is one of the most heavily forested counties in the world and contains some of the finest timber growing soils and weather in history, and most of it is being openly wasted at a tremendous cost to U.S. taxpayers and an even greater cost to rural Lane County residents. These are national issues played out at a local level. If our forests were being actively and sustainably managed again for future generations, as originally outlined by law and successfully practiced by earlier generations, it would greatly reduce wildfire risks, wildlife mortality, deadly air pollution, and ugly landscapes, while greatly increasing local job and recreational opportunities and significantly more funding for our schools, roads, and police. We know how to fix this mess. Our parents and grandparents showed us how.
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Ben for the first question.
All areas of Lane County face an affordable housing shortage. What can the county do to address that issue? And what also can the county do to help proposed housing projects get approved quicker?
Let's start with Jake Pelroy.
Yeah, there's a couple things here. First, we can be partners with our cities, see what the cities need as far as their needs are around infrastructure. There's a great example down in Cresswell where they're on a building moratorium. They need some added wastewater capacity there, and they've asked the county to be a partner in that. They asked about 4 years ago. And I think they're just now getting around to getting the plans put together for that. That would allow for more affordable housing in East Lane County. I also think we need to take a look at that. There was a audit that was done of the Land Management Division a year and a half ago with multiple recommendations in there. The board has yet to take any action on any of those items. I think that those could really streamline some stuff for people. And really, the overall Land Management Division needs to be more of a partnership with the people that are out there rather than an adversary. That is what I hear consistently. And so that would help with bringing more homes into East Lane County and Lane County in general.
Thank you. Bob Zybak, same question to you.
I don't think Lane County needs affordable housing so much as we need jobs so we can afford to have housing. We have lost thousands of jobs in the last 30, 35 years because of changes in forest management policy. There should be sawmill, logging, tree planting, recreation jobs again, as we used to have. And we didn't have a housing problem at that time. We didn't have homeless people. We didn't have drug addicts on the streets. We had adequate police patrols, and this was all paid for by working people in Lane County, and we can do it again.
Thank you. Heather?
Thank you. Although we know that cities will largely bear the brunt of new housing development, we know that the county has a large role to play. We have an affordable housing action plan, which I'm proud to have passed in my first 2 terms as county commissioner. And this is really a roadmap to housing development throughout our county. In there, we have a laundry list of things that we know that we can get to. And some of the things that I'm proud that we've been able to do is increase our land readiness. We've been able to work on industrial lands as well as a land banking program that you heard about earlier this evening. In this land banking program is really a way in which we can store land that's been challenged in one way or the other, work through the administrative areas in which it needs to be prepared and ready for somebody to build right away. In addition to that, we have done things like up in Blue River, where we have done a comprehensive land management mapping. We're able to increase the density of that area as they rebuild, they can build back more homes and businesses. And that is really a way that we can model throughout the county. We have a roadmap for that now, and we're prepared and looking at other small communities where we can increase density in that way. We're also working on a rural housing policy incubator. The first time that the county has worked with the University of Oregon and brought in minds from around the state that really focus on rural issues and how to increase housing in those areas. And that has really resulted in work at the state level where we've been able to put policies in place in existing bills and pass at the state legislature.
Thank you. Next question. Usually on any given shift, there are only a few Lane County Sheriff's deputies patrolling the entire county. The county is currently in preliminary stages of looking at potential ways to raise money next year for public safety and put more patrol deputies in the field and prevent burnout of prosecutors. What does the county need to do to better fund public safety, or does it? How would you go about doing that? Bob Zyback.
We need to get off welfare and get back to work. When we had people working in the woods 30 and 40 years ago, we adequately afforded police and sheriff help, no problem. This is a difficulty of large-scale unemployment, lost businesses, ruined communities. We've burnt over 400,000 acres of forest in the last 5 years, just in East Lane County. Most of it has gone unsalvaged, and now we're paying more taxpayer dollars to go through and clean up a mess from 3 and 4 years ago that should have produced tens of millions of dollars and 1,000 or 2,000 jobs for the last few years. The problem is people are not working. We've created a homeless industry. It's been very successful. We've got more homeless people than ever before. We've got addicts on the street. This is not a good situation. It needs to be fixed, and we know how to do it and should do it.
Thank you. Heather.
Thank you. I'm the only candidate here that actually lives outside of a city. And so I know what it means to actually rely on sheriff's patrol and know that unless it's really severe, we may not have the deputies on staff in order to reach you. And I'm the only candidate here as well that has had a chance to vote and pass on adding more rural patrol, increasing funding for victims services, and adding mobile crisis care so that we can look at this as a system. Public safety is a huge issue for all of the commissioners. That is why we dedicate 74% of our general fund towards our public safety system. It's a top priority. We have been able to put together a public safety task force that came together for over a year to look at the problem and see what we could potentially do, and has come up with several options for the commissioners to review and go out to the community and see what the community is really able and willing to do. We will have a consultant work with us over the summertime. We'll be coming out to your communities. We'll be chatting with you about the results of the Public Safety Task Force and get your input and come back to the commissioners and see what is potentially possible. We know that we cannot cut our way out of the funding that we have available. We have given nearly everything that we've got in our general fund dollars that currently exists towards public safety. So we have to think outside the box, and that's where we really want the community to give us feedback. And I look forward to having those conversations.
Thank you. Jake Pelroy.
Yeah, thanks for the question about public safety. I touched on it earlier. We have 3 deputies that patrol our county at any given time. That is inadequate. There is one of the things that was really key that I think some of the commissioners have looked over on the executive summary about this public safety funding task force was that you need to build trust with the populace. You need to look at all of the things that you're currently doing that could have gone to public safety funding that aren't. And there's been some stuff in recently the Clean Lane project, $11 million a year. That's how much it costs. That's how much is in the budget for that. That would pay for 38 deputies. Unacceptable use of taxpayer dollars. We are #1 in the entire state on recycling already, near the end on public safety. I'd also like to touch on the O&C lands. O&C lands are specifically for county benefit. That is how our county structure has paid for, our county government has paid for services over these years. We have a low property tax rate, and the federal government has made this agreement with us, and it doesn't matter who's in the administration in office. We are going to try, if I'm the commissioner, I'm going to try to make the federal government hold to that agreement, because what has happened is now the citizens are being asked to pay more instead of the federal government. And so the harvest of the O&C lands is key.
Thank you. Next question.
I want to talk a little bit more about rural issues. Speaking very broadly about rural issues, what, if anything, can the county do to better provide services in rural areas outside the Eugene-Springfield urban area? And as a commissioner, how would you make sure rural parts of Lane County get the attention they need?
Heather.
Thank you. As a rural resident myself, this is really near and dear to my heart. There are several ways in which the county can reach out to our rural communities. It is part of my nature to advocate for rural communities, given where I live as well. And we've been successful in many ways in reaching our rural communities. And those examples are things like our South Lane healthcare clinic that we just opened in Cottage Grove. This is our first federally qualified healthcare clinic. Most people don't know that we serve primary and dental care to over 30,000 people in our community, and that needed to extend into rural communities. In addition, I'm proud to be able to vote and enact a mobile crisis unit, and those go out to all 4 corners of our county now and care for people who are having a mental health care crisis. In addition to that, a big issue out in our rural areas for livability is internet connectivity. I know what it's like not to have very good internet at my house. And I know that there are a lot of small businesses out there who have to rely on internet to be part of the business community in the 21st century. And they're out on top of their tree trying to get internet, and that's just not acceptable. So we've been able to work with local service providers in order to expand internet services. In addition, to live out in a rural community, you also need to be able to have access to healthcare. And those small clinics in our rural communities are really important. We've been able to help support and advocate for small clinics like Orchid Healthcare and others in our rural communities that really make a big difference in livability for folks out in the community.
Thank you. Jake.
Yeah, county commissioner is a full-time job. So I plan to be an advocate with active leadership out in the community. On all of my literature, I have my phone number. You can get in touch with me. I've already helped some people out with issues. whether it be a county issue, a state issue, a city issue. I'm there to help. I think what's key, the broadband thing is really interesting because I've been hearing about rural broadband for probably 26 years as an issue out in rural communities. And there is really two aspects of that. There is the affordability, and then there's the accessibility of those. And I've managed to work on that. Part of my background is I've worked up at the legislature for 6 years, and I was on the state senator that I worked for was on the broadband work group, where we were working through a lot of those issues, and a lot of the state legislative initiatives that have come down from that have come from that work group. So I think that's an interesting thing there. But the county is a big organization that has a lot of staff, and I believe that it's important on the county commission to make sure that we have we're allowing or we're getting the services that we need to the residents.
Thank you. Bob?
In 2022, the Cedar Creek fire was 2 acres in size, and instead of having local people go and put the fire out, they hauled in more than 1,000 people and started setting more fires. And over the next 30 days, they had about 1,200 people there and had spent millions of taxpayer dollars. Then on September 2nd, an east wind came up, and it blew up and burnt 127,000 acres and inundated Oak Ridge and West Fir with toxic smoke for 3 weeks. That smoke they're now showing is killing 40,000 people a year in the United States. The smoke was so bad that when the wind shifted and went north, the city of Seattle became the most air polluted town, large city in the world. That was smoke from the Cedar Creek fire. After it was over $132 million had been spent, taxpayer dollars. That buys a lot of police, a lot of teachers, a lot of county commissioners. Instead of that money staying in the community, it went to Mexico, it went to Alaska, it went to New Zealand, it went to Alabama, it went to North Carolina. And what we got was gates behind blocking us from 2 billion feet of standing timber. Instead of salvaging that timber for thousands of jobs and tens of millions into our county coffers, we ended up letting it rot. It will burn again. We know that. That's what happened to the Tumblebug fire. So the best thing we can do for the rural county, East Lane County in particular, is put people back to work doing the job that the law says they're supposed to be doing, sustainable yield. On our federal lands, 25% of that money is supposed to go directly to county roads and schools.
Thank you. Next question. Lane County's had to make cuts to homeless services in lieu of state funding dropping in recent years. What are some of the ways, besides getting more money from the state, that the county can combat the homelessness problem here in Lane County? Jake?
I think seeing a statistic, homelessness grew 17% last year. There is definitely a need out in the community. I think the first thing you have to do is figure out what the outcomes are. What are we looking for? What is a success in that aspect? I think when you have better data around that, then you can figure out who you're trying to address with the limited amount of funds that are around. And then you got to figure out how to use those funds.
Thank you. Bob?
When I was a kid, we didn't have a homeless problem. It was against the law to loiter or to sleep in public. If you were drunk or intoxicated, they put you in a drunk tank. If you were mentally ill, they put you in a hospital and gave you treatment. If you were just poor, they told you to get a job. So these problems of homelessness, we give them all kinds of incentives. And by them, I mean the homeless industry. People are making millions and millions of dollars increasing the amount of homeless people we've got, by increasing the amount of immigrants we got. These aren't local people down on their luck. These are people getting free food, free needles, don't have to work for it, free mental health care, and it's working. We've got more homeless than ever before. We're really doing good at that. We should stop. We should treat these people. We should take away the incentives, and we should provide jobs for people that need them.
Heather.
The best way to stop homelessness is to prevent it from the first place. And the programs that the county puts in place are a lot of those prevention measures. We are able to use the homeless by name count, which is a specific measurement that we use to track those folks that are coming in for services at our agency and our partnering agencies. When we look at that data, we know whether they're able to go to a transitional housing, whether they're able and open to be cared for at permanent supportive housing locations. People need a place to live. That's the bottom line. And when we talk about prevention, that means eviction prevention, funding to ensure that people aren't being kicked out of their house at the last minute if they only reason that they need help is for lack of money. I have worked in housing for a very long time before becoming commissioner. And so this is a passion subject of mine. The best thing that we can do, as I mentioned, is just prevent people from falling through the cracks. And we need to preserve naturally affordable housing that occurs. That means those folks in mobile home parks and manufactured housing locations, which is something I did for several years before becoming commissioner, is going in there, making sure that they have clean, safe, affordable homes to live in so that they're then able to stay in their homes, but also lock in a naturally affordable rate. And that can come in a myriad of different ways. But community land bank trusting is also another way in order to preserve housing at a rate that people can also eventually purchase their own homes.
Thank you. Ben, next question.
What's the county's role in spurring economic development, and what additional things or tools does a county need in order to accomplish that?
Bob.
Economic development ties right into our forests. We've got 1.6 million acres of forest. Most of it's been abandoned. A lot of it's burnt up, hasn't been salvaged, hasn't been reforested. Economic development is a restoration of active forest management, as we did for generations. Actually, for 10,000 years, people took care of the forests. It only became a federal issue, and we began developing these problems in the early 90s with litigation and with the passive management of our forests, beginning with Warner Creek, with protests that started right here in Eugene. So those changes, the loss of revenue, the loss of jobs, the increase in deadly smoke, the loss of wildlife, the loss of recreational opportunities ties directly to the lack of income and employment opportunities for our rural communities.
Heather.
We have a team of economic development advisors at the county who work on this on a regular basis. There is a list of things that they work on each and every day in order to ensure that we are spurring economic development in our area. And so I'm just going to touch on the big 4 areas that we have worked on. And I mentioned this when there was a question about housing, but we have also focused on industrial land readiness in our community for advanced manufacturing. We've been able to help Coburg with a $2 million SEAL grant. That is really semiconductor industrial lands loan. We've been able to work with StrataCash in order to facilitate the semiconductor manufacturing facility that used to be there. And we've worked with Arcimoto for reworking their facility into a medical supply manufacturing area. Another area that we work on is to retain existing industry in our area. And we've been able to support a strategic investment program with Sierra Pacific Industries. We've been able to support an enterprise zone with Weyerhaeuser in the South Lane area, as well as an enterprise zone for Peterson Pacific Corp for an $8.2 million facility. We also work on rural infrastructure issues, and that's really in the Mapleton area as well as Junction City and Cresswell, in order to ensure that they have the adequate infrastructure to develop property so that those can turn into businesses. And lastly, we have been able to do strategic economic development initiatives in the community. That means really targeted grants to businesses in our area that are either trying to grow or thrive or need that initial capital investment.
Great, thank you. Jake.
Yeah, I really think that there's some tools that are given to the Board of County Commissioners. I think you need to have a mindset that you are going to be open for business. You got to think about it as someone that is trying to start a business. What are the inputs that go into it, and how do you help them achieve that goal? I would say, I'm going to harp on this again, but the land management division, if you're not able to get your permit to build something on your property, then you are dead in the water until you're able to do that. There's been many examples given to me out in the district pointing out issues on where they could have developed if they would have speedier permitting process. I think another one is keeping costs low. There are some inputs that the county have control over where you can work to keep costs low, and some of it is direct and some of it is through your advocacy. You need to be able to be a partner, the nexus for businesses in your community, to be able to go to the legislature or go to the federal government and say, hey, we need this from you. Or we need you to not do this. Be that watchdog for businesses to say, hey, this new regulation that the state of Oregon has coming down, we need you to rethink this. And then I would also say partner with the chamber and economic development agencies on things that they need, what they see in the future. A lot of what the commissioner can do is be ready and be aware of this, and then have that perspective of how do we create more jobs and economic development.
Thank you. Next question. The Trump administration is remapping federal lands to harvest more timber. What should the county's role be in that issue? Heather.
Thank you. It's important to note that the Lane County Commissioners have no jurisdiction over federal and state forestry policy, but we do have a decent advocacy role that we can have. In there, we are making sure that we are a partner in the discussion that the federal government is now potentially opening additional land up for more timber harvest. We must be able to have enough time in order to really talk with the community and give meaningful feedback. Right now, the timeline that the federal government has given to our area to actually turn in and comment on the expansion of our forestry areas is really narrowed to a point where I'm not really even certain that they're interested in what we have to say. Regardless, we are working at the county to ensure that we will be able to meaningfully put in comments to the federal government about the potential expansion in that area. And while timber is a vital industry, it's not the only industry in Oregon or Lane County. After the 80s and the spotted owl, we have since diversified our workforce since the 80s. And it's backwards to think that all of our forests will suddenly provide a windfall to counties. Even if they were able to expand and do additional timber harvesting, the federal government has decimated our Forest Service to a point where they will likely not even be able to be efficient in managing any additional timber harvest.
Thank you. Jake?
All right, thanks for the question. I really enjoy this topic, not as much as Bob does, though. So what we're talking about is BLM, ONC lands. So I've done some touring recently of some ONC lands and just learned how they do their harvest and their process. It's a little bit it's different than what private does. So the news about the new resource management plan is welcome news for me. They run their bidding process through the Small Business Administration. So small businesses get a chance at these timber harvests first. So there is, at one of those harvests, I was just happened to run into people that had just started their business. So there's an example there of economic development. I also would like to point out that there is, this news is not new news. This ONC Act has been around since the 30s. The conversation around these lands, they are specifically for county jurisdiction and county benefit. This has been around for the 30s. If they study this, they run it through NEPA. There is a lot of discussion that goes through on these lands. And I believe this year we are going to get more timber harvest, but the following year is when the resource management plan is going to be out. And I think this is great news for the county, great news for East Lane in particular.
Bob?
This is definitely a county issue. The county has not been doing its job. The 1897 Organic Act says specifically that the counties, the local populations would be managing the forest, getting rid of dead and dying trees for the benefit of the people of the United States, making products. The 1937 ONC Act that Jake mentions was sustainable yield. That means you don't cut more than grows. In 1937, we had 50 billion feet on ONC lands. Now we have 70 billion feet. Between 1960 and 1990, we harvested over 1 billion feet a year and we reforested our lands. In 1970, I started my reforestation business on ONC lands. They were really well managed. Last Wednesday, I went to ONC land. It was covered with weeds, poor management, poor reforestation. It's really been degraded the last 30 or 35 years. If we go back to the previous harvest levels, we will have 1 billion feet cut again. It will create 7,000 or 8,000 jobs. It will produce tens of millions of dollars for our county. Those funds are specifically for a county. We have 400,000 acres of burnt up land in the East Lane County. Very little's been done about it. No contact's been made with the feds. It's the county's business to make sure that people are working, that we have income from these lands, we stop having fires, and we start putting people back to work. This has been a total neglect of duty.
Thank you. Next question.
In 2020, the Holiday Farm fire devastated rural communities in the McKenzie River Valley. There's been a lot of rebuilding since then, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done. What role can the county play in continued recovery efforts looking ahead?
Jake?
It's a good question. We've just recently saw some numbers on the recovery. We're at 50% recovered. In 2022, I'd previously pulled up numbers in April of 2022, and I think we're at 33%. So 17% in the last 4 years. At that same time, we pulled Marion County's numbers, 58%. I'm looking into where Marion is at, but as I've stated before, the state is the one that enacts the laws, and then the counties are the ones that are supposed to implement all those laws. I think this, we definitely need to look at the overall system, that the land management system, because it was a stress on the system, losing that many dwellings and then having to recover from that. They weren't able to permit things as quickly as possible. So there's definitely some work to be done there. I think as a county commissioner, I would be out there working with people, making sure we have what they need. We can't just say, well, this is the state problem. The state has actually passed legislation to fast track permitting, and that was a delayed implementation by the Board of County Commissioners on that. The other counties that experienced fire loss in the Labor Day forest fires, they implemented those immediately. And so I look to help those people that have moved or are still trying to rebuild.
Thanks. Bob?
Right after the Holiday Farm fire, my PhD's in the study of catastrophic wildfires of Western Oregon. These fires have been predicted for 30 years. If we did the Northwest Forest Plan, we're going to have catastrophic wildfires. We have people blaming this on global warming or climate change. That's nonsense. In the 1930s, we had serious weather problems. I'm trying to think of drought. I'm blaming age. It was warmer and drier in the 30s than now. In 33, we had the Tillamook fire. In 36, we had the Bandon fire. In 39, we had the Tillamook fire again. The total of those fires was less than 1 million acres. In September 10 and 11, 2020, we burned up over 1 million acres in 48 hours. The weather has been about the same for 500 years. We've had the same seasons. It's probably been similar for about 5,000 years. To blame this on climate change or something of that nature is just dumb. It's politics. You mix science and politics, you get politics. These were predicted because we stopped salvaging our dead trees, we stopped managing our lands, we started closing off our roads, we started letting our trails grow to weeds. And the result was very predictable. You didn't have to be a scientist. I did my dissertation on this, but I know plenty of loggers and foresters in the early 90s that said, if we follow the Clinton plan, if we listen to these people on the Warner Creek protests, we're going to have catastrophic fires and unemployment. The thing where I was wrong in my prediction, as I said, the public will never stand for this. In 2002, we had the Biscuit fire and the B&B fire, and I thought for certain, this is it. The public won't stand for it. We created roadless areas and we created let it burn fires and only made it worse. And it's worse.
Heather?
Thank you. I have been with the folks in Blue River since the Holiday Farm fire occurred. It has been my honor and my privilege to work with this community to recover from the biggest catastrophic disaster we have seen in Lane County. And these folks have been through so much. It's been extremely devastating. There are people upriver who have had the means to be able to rebuild. They were insured, that insurance came through, and that is fantastic. We've been able to put in new community spaces, a new fire station, a new library, a new community center. Some of these critical infrastructure buildings that really make things a community, but there's a lot more that we need to do. And right now, we have a team of folks working specifically on rebuilding upriver. And things that we're doing currently is working with Oregon Housing Community Services in order to allocate the Community Development Block Grant disaster recovery funds that have come through from the federal government. There are various different programs, but they do economic development infrastructure for folks. We have been able to work on accessory dwelling unit creation upriver for new housing starts. And we've been working with OHCS, Oregon Housing Community Services, on the HARP Fund. The HARP Fund is just an acronym for being able to help reimburse folks for rebuilding or be able to bridge a gap in funding. They just need X amount of dollars to kind of finish their project out. We have also been able to fund the McKinsey Long-Term Recovery Group with grant money for small dollars in order to upgrade housing.
Thank you. One challenge facing a lot of Lane County residents is the fraying of the social safety net. What should the county's role be in ensuring access to healthcare and food as federal benefits like Medicaid and SNAP face reductions? Bob?
I think that our county's role has probably been too extensive already. I think there's lots of more people on SNAP benefits and Section 8 housing than ever. So that those programs keep growing, and there's reasons for that growth. Is people are paid to promote these programs. So we've got a giant bureaucracy built up to encourage illegal aliens through sanctuary cities, through free food, through driver's license, to encourage homelessness through free food, medical care, drug supplies. Those didn't happen before, and we didn't have these problems before. These are self-inflicted problems. We know how to fix them, but we're not doing it. We're relying more and more and more on other people's money, expecting US taxpayers to bail us out while we're letting 400,000 acres just in the last 5 years sit idle and rot. This is just wrong. We need to get back to work. These government programs are helpful. They've always worked in the past, but they've been expanded to too great a degree. We need to cut our budgets. We need to get back to work. We need to start putting money back into the coffers and stop wasting our wealth.
Heather?
This federal government has made such a major disinvestment in our social safety net that we are now seeing a loss of critical services at the state, county, and city level. These are basic services for our most vulnerable in our community, and we must make a concerted effort as the stewards of taxpayer dollars to ensure that our most vulnerable in our community are safe, secure, and housed. I'm proud that we are the Board of Public Health, in which we are able to serve folks in primary dental care and now moving into mental health care services. So even though we see at the federal government this disinvestment, this chaos, this disorganization, and the decimation of many critical services, it's our job as county commissioners to advocate to them, saying these are things that are really bipartisan, and we must ensure that we continue to serve these folks. We've been able to do targeted investments to food programs here locally. We also run the WIC program here in Lane County for those mothers that need additional food. We have childcare services through the county, and we partner with other agencies in order to expand childcare services throughout Lane County. This is something that is unique to myself as the only sitting commissioner with a young child, where we need to ensure that those families are still receiving those critical services in order to live a thriving life in Lane County.
Jake?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because, the state of Oregon has done things a little bit differently than some of the other states that are around the nation, and they relied on a lot of federal programs throughout the year. They tried to leverage as much as possible, and our county has also done that as well. They've tried to leverage as much money as out there, and this is a reaction now because the federal government has thought, well, we're in trillions and trillions of debt. Maybe there's a desire to maybe cut back a little bit and figure out where we need to look to help in just in a manner that is more appropriate for our budget. I would say that when there was incidents recently where there was limited SNAP, there was a lot of efforts out there into the community to food banks and churches. They all stepped up for that. And so I think a county commissioner's role is to point people in that direction and build those partnerships up with those other entities that aren't relying on state and federal dollars all the time. And then I also think that our county is in need of more high-paying jobs that pay for benefits as well. So those are some of the things that I think county can help with.
Thank you. We're going to try to squeeze in 2 more questions. Ben.
So describe for us how a commissioner should approach the role of supporting county staffers and working with them to implement policies.
Heather.
There is a unique relationship between the elected officials and staff in any given governmental agency. And part of the role of commissioners is really to set the policy, to set the tone and the strategic direction in which we want to go as a community. And then we give it to the staff, which we have highly professional staff at our agency, to really work on the technical aspects of making that that idea, that policy fulfilled. Our administrator often uses the metaphor of the commissioners are the passengers on a bus and he's the driver. We tell him where we want to go, but he's the one that actually figures out how to get there. And that is the unique skill set between commissioners and staff. We want to ensure that we are listening to the community. We are setting policy that is in the best interests of all residents. And then we are able to give those direction to staff. They work on the technical aspect. They bring it back to us with their ideas. They give us a couple of different options and we tell them, okay, this is the one that we think will be the best way to serve our community. If we have a policy, for example, on housing, and we want to say we want to ensure that we are building 20 new accessory dwelling units upriver in the McKenzie River. We want to see the money that we received from Oregon and Housing Community Services used for that purposes. Please go and develop a program that works, come back to us, we'll approve it, and we're going to implement it. That's the relationship that we have with our staff. It's important to keep those good relationships.
Thank you. Jake.
Yeah, staff and electeds and their relationship. I would say that the Board of County Commissioners, for those of you who don't know, there's essentially 3 employees that the county commissioners are responsible for. You have the county administrator, the county council, county performance auditor. We haven't had a performance auditor in 7 years. I think we need to hire a performance auditor here. Additionally, in all my time working up at the legislature, I always tell everyone that comes into my office, thank you for your service. You help us out a ton, whether it be anyone from cities, counties, state employees. But I think there's a key thing here, as East Lane is different than North and South Eugene and Springfield. We are the rural commissioners. We are the first line of local government to many people. So sometimes you do need to get into the weeds on policy stuff, especially when it's not serving your constituents. I would say that I think that there's oftentimes some conversations that need to be a little bit broader. That the board is making decisions on where they only have staff present. And I think that there's some opportunities to bring in some other voices on that from stakeholders from the community. Not that those decisions are pretty broad, and we need to hear from other people, especially if there's a problem where people aren't getting the service that they need.
Bob.
It's like the David Lovell question. I don't know that staff relationships have ever come up before in these types of campaigns, but I could be wrong. For 25 years, I ran a reforestation business. I hired over 300 people during that time. There's a fair amount of turnover, but I had many employees work for me for 10 and 12 years and longer. The main thing is to build a team. It looks to me that we probably have a surplus of staff from all of the different committees and staff and report. It's like the Forest Service. We've got a lot of people doing a lot of busy work and nobody actually rolling up their sleeves and going to work. I never had any problems working with a good team of people, ever. And the reason was I worked right alongside them, usually outworked most of them, but they knew what the job was, they knew who was working with them, and we got the job done. I think working with the staff is a mutually beneficial operation as long as people have the same objectives and goals. It's a work ethic, and I think we have a lot of people on staff that could probably benefit by that lesson.
Great, great. I want to blow through this last question, might give you a minute to 90 seconds or so. Just in wrapping up, can you speak to an experience in your life outside of an elected role that shaped how you make decisions? What was the experience and how did it impact your approach to public service? Jake.
Well, never been elected before, so this is going to be a little bit easier for me, Elon. A little bit about my background. I joined the Marine Corps in 2005 and did 3 tours to Iraq. I think that really changes my perspective on life. Life can be very short. I also, you also know that we have it really well here in the United States of America. And I feel really blessed that I live here, and to always have that perspective is really key with me.
Thank you. Bob.
The events that affected me most by far were the birth of my children, the birth of my grandson, the births of my 2 great grandkids. Personally, starting a reforestation business and working on that for 20 years was very satisfying and instructive. Going to college, back to college as a middle-aged student and getting my PhD in forestry was an important thing. But the most eventful circumstance I can recall, I wrote an entire article about it, was deciding to go into politics. This is an interesting decision, and it's made entirely because these issues have been avoided in this county and the 18 ONC counties and the 700 counties that have national forest lands way too long. We've let these lands go to waste. We've let the small communities dependent upon them die back. We've lost businesses and families. We can reverse that trend, and I think we need to do it.
Heather.
I've shared this story a number of times. As a young child, there was a divorce in my family, lived out in Veneta, and there was a long stretch where we had housing instability. I wasn't sure as a kiddo where we were moving to. I went to 4 different schools in a row, and through the sheer tenacity of my single mom, she was able to finally stabilize us in my high school years. And that experience really shaped the way I work and think about those working families that are struggling in our community. I know what it's like to be there. I know what it's like through the eyes of a child. And I'm now proud to be supported by many organizations that really are dedicated to working families in our community, like Lane Professional Firefighters, AFSCME, SCIU, and the building trades. You know, I have a unique role and vision for our community that is different and I think is critical to working on the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the East Lane County Commissioner candidates, incumbent Heather Buck, challengers Jake Pelroy and Bob Zyback. Why don't you go ahead and give them a round of applause.